Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Hutchinson City Council meeting for Tuesday, November 9th, 2021. Call the meeting to order. Approve the council agenda. Any agenda additions or corrections?
Mayor Council, I don't have any additions or corrections for you tonight.
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda.
Second.
Motion by Mary, second by Pat to approve the agenda. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Invocations from Hutchinson Evangelical Free Church. Good evening. Please.
So pressure's on then. So.
Well, I do know how to pray, so I
There we go.
gracious and heavenly Father, I thank you for each person who's here. I thank you for this city in which we are, and Lord, I just pray that your presence would be with us, that you would be with our council members and all the people serving our city, that you would help them to have the wisdom they need to make difficult decisions in a difficult world. And Father, I just pray for your power and your provision, your protection and your justice in our city. I pray that you would care for our people and that you would be with this meeting the rest of this evening too. We pray these things in your name. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next is Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Recognition of gifts, donations, and community service to the city. Does anybody have anything tonight? I just, been traveling around town, and I don't know who the two gentlemen are, or three, but we have people that go around picking up garbage all the time. So I just want to thank them for what they do to keep our city clean. So.
Owen Wilkie is one of them. He goes to our church, or I go to the same church as him.
Does he?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you see him all over town all the time with a bag in his hand.
Bagging, picking up stuff.
Yeah, second job for you.
There you go.
All right, public comment. Anybody wants to address the council, please come forward. State your name and address. Alrighty, approval of minutes. We have the regular meeting minutes of October 26, 2021.
Motion to approve.
Second. Nope.
Motion by Chad, second by Pat to approve those minutes. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Consent agenda. This will be done with one motion unless somebody pulls something off for discussion. A is approval of issuing transit merchant license to Tina Novotny for pop-up sale at the depot. B is approval of small business Saturday event on November 27th, 2021. C is approval of snowplow truck equipment purchase. D is approval of airport hangar 1790 memorandum of lease and subordination agreement. E is approval of resolution number 15371, authorization to execute Minnesota DOT economic maintenance and operation agreement and contract. F is approval of airport rescue grant program application. G is approval of out-of-state travel for Ken Exner to attend transportation research board annual meeting in Washington, D.C. from January 9th through the 13th, 2022. H is approval of issuing temporary liquor license to Down with Diabetes Alliance on November 27th, 2021 at the Hutchinson Event Center. And I is claims appropriation and contract payments. Is there anything that anybody wants pulled off?
I'll make a motion to approve it.
I'll second.
Motion by Chad, second by Mary to approve the consent agenda. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. We do have a public hearing, but, we'll skip that and we'll go down to new business. We don't have communications, request petitions, no unfinished business. New business would be resolution number 15372, adopting city snow removal and ice control policy. Mr. Olson.
Well, thank you, Mayor and Council. The document that was sent in shows that what we had anticipated changing, most of it being for grammatical or clarification, better understanding. Nothing substantial in the change to the policy. More or less just making it a little bit easier to understand for everybody. We tend to look at this every couple of years or so and make sure that we're staying on top of our snow plowing policy. With that, I think I'd like to just do a short presentation on the snow removal operations for the city. If there's any specific questions about the policy itself, I'd be happy to answer them too. Tonight's presentation is meant to give a... sorry. Yeah.
There you go.
Boy, it was snowing real hard there, John. I couldn't see.
Yeah, I couldn't see. Couldn't even see through it. Yeah. So tonight I'm trying. The intent is to give a brief overview of snow removal operations for the city. The snow and ice policy is designed to create the necessary authority to prioritize assignment of city personnel and equipment to maintain the streets and roadways in a manner that allows for emergency, commercial, and personal transportation. Obviously, weather monitoring is a big deal. We use MnDOT roadway information system. We use other websites from NOAA, AccuWeather, obviously the commercial sites. And all of those high-tech tools, the most effective is to just get up and go outside. And if it's white, go to work. And if it's not white, go back to bed. So that's how it happens most of the time. So once we do make a decision, we kind of decide what we're going to do, who's all involved, and notify the personnel. We try to have adequate notice to the operators whenever possible, so that so they can prepare themselves and their equipment. And then once we notify the snow removal operators, then I'll usually let the police department know when we're coming in and kind of what operation we're going to be doing. We do have since 2010, a snow emergency ordinance in place. Some years we've issued several snow emergencies. Many years we've issued none. It just depends. And we usually don't do it unless there's about 4 inches of snow, high winds with significant drifting, or significant icing conditions. Those are usually the 3 conditions that we'll call. And that ordinance restricts on-street parking from midnight until 7 o'clock in the morning, following the declaration. And vehicles that are parked in violation can be towed by police officer. So again, typically don't do that unless there's 4 inches of snow or severe drifting or severe slippery conditions.
John,
Yeah.
on most city parking lots, there is the designated
There are, yeah.
spots, right, to park.
Right. I'm going to go over the parking lots a little later, but you're right. There are several parking lots that have designated overnight parking, and those are, they would not be affected by the snow emergency. Generally before noon, for sure before 4 o'clock in the afternoon. Each day I have to decide to whether to notify for a snow emergency. If we do, and the conditions warrant, we make a notification. We update our snow emergency line. It's 234-5699. You can call that number, find out if there is or isn't. We also, all of the local radio stations, the HCVN, Hutch Leader website, city notification system. There's a place on the city's website you can sign up to be notified via text or email, or even a phone call for that matter. And we'll update our message also on our phone line, and any other notification systems will let designated staff know that we're going to be doing it, and obviously those of us involved in snow removal will be notified. And those parking restrictions begin at midnight, and they're in effect until 7 o'clock the following morning. Sometimes it's necessary to put successive emergencies in a row. Each time that a snow emergency is declared, the parking restrictions start over again. Existing parking regulations that are already posted remain in effect and are enforced. And any issues that we have during operations usually get passed on to myself, and I'll contact somebody in the police department if there's issues. Again, we want to use this very judiciously. We want to think about weather conditions, precipitation types, accumulations, what we're planning to do, all of those things. But again, typically 4 inches, very severe drifting, wind events, and then severe slippery conditions.
And John, and I'm thinking about recent memory. I think a lot of times this is where people get confused. It depends when the snowfall is too. It might be the day after the snow's actually fallen.
Yes.
And I think that's where sometimes people get
Right.
confused because they go, well, it snowed.
And it's,
And now the next day you're doing it. Well, that's
right. It's partly just to make sure that we get everything cleaned up. And so it can kind of follow. It just depends on the timing of the snow itself. So obviously off-street parking is the best if it can be done at all. We appreciate that. Snow removal really isn't rocket science. There's only 2 things you can do. You can move it out of the way, or you can let it melt. That's all that you can do. Moving it out of the way mechanically is the most common. Obviously, everybody does it in their own home, in their driveway, in their patio, and that kind of thing. But when the weather conditions allow, melting occurs naturally. When the weather is not warm enough, we can introduce some materials to suppress the freezing point of the water. And basically salts, sugars, alcohol are the main 3 things that you can dump on the road to reduce the freezing point. The most common suppressants are salts, chlorides, and even the other materials, some agricultural sugars and things like that often will include some chlorides to help with the process of suppressing the freezing point. The focus in the last 20 years or so has decidedly been on melting. However, those material costs continue to rise, and there are some pretty significant environmental impacts of chlorides. And so several years ago, we made a very deliberate shift to reduce the amount of salt that we're putting down and increase the mechanical removal of the snow. And reducing this use of chloride is now the push statewide. And if you compare states in the upper Midwest, North Dakota has the least amount of salt use. Wisconsin has way more than we do.
Of course.
You know, so what we're trying to do is on our own, and you can see that we have a pretty decided downward trend over the last 15 years. And that again has been a lot in not only reducing the amount, but putting the material where it needs to be. So, you know, if a driver has an action to take, a turn to make, or something to slow down, or some decision point, you know, that's where we want that sand and salt to be for them. Moving it out of the way, we use 36 different vehicles and pieces of equipment to move the snow out of the way. And obviously we'll use some ice control materials. We like sunshine. It doesn't happen a whole lot during the winter. The days are short, but it does help. One of the places that I always point to is the airport. We do not use any chemicals out there at all. No chlorides to melt ice, because of the light aircraft are particularly vulnerable to that, for sure, to chlorides. So, but even the sun's power itself can really burn a lot of ice off. So, 28 operators that we use on a typical event, larger event. Pretty much everybody in Public Works is in the operations side is involved. All of the park maintenance operators are involved. We steal one guy from water and one from wastewater during the heavier events. And then we contract up to 8 drivers for hauling snow. You can see our very, very slight increase over time of the personnel hours. And again, that's the focus on removing ice and snow mechanically, and to reduce our dependence on chlorides that we introduce. Obviously, there's a very slight increase in personnel hours, but if you compare it to the decrease that we've seen in the use of chlorides, that's much more dramatic. 3 wheel loaders and 8 snowplow trucks. One of them that we was included on the replacement schedule. Here we have 2 loaders that are assigned to the routes. A third one is also assigned to a route, except when it's hooked to the snow blower and it's removing snow downtown. All 3 of the wheel loaders are equipped like this with a wing plow and a snow plow. And 2 of the loaders typically work in the downtown area. The third is used primarily for a lot of the dead end and cul-de-sac streets that we have. Loader operators get together when they're nearing the end of their route to figure out if they can help one another out. We have 8 snowplow trucks. 6 are assigned to primary routes and to de-icing operations. More often than not, we'll use only 5 snowplows for de-icing operations, sanding. And to start off with, the plows work together in tandem, one truck following the other, to take care of the main routes, the priority routes, and then they split off into their own neighborhood route. The 7th truck works downtown, also a little bit out at the airport to help with that. And then there is a spare truck that we have. It's primarily used as our log truck during the winter, so it's got quite a long box, but it is set up with a plow and a wing, so if we have to, we can use it as a spare. Again, just like everybody, when they're done, they check in with each other. Where can I help you finish up? All of the trucks, primary trucks, are equipped with sand and salt distributors, and then also with pre-wetting brine tanks. We can add a little brine into the sand and salt as we lay it down, and that helps the sand and salt stay where it's supposed to go, where we want it to go, and then it also helps to kickstart the process of melting. We have looked at different options for anti-icing, which is a different technology that you actually put the material down on the road prior to the storm event. And we've looked at some options for that, and I think we'll end up going down that road at some point, probably in the not too distant future. So, light trucks are a very important part of our fleet. They provide snow removal services in the alleys, in the parking lots, and at various public facilities. They can oftentimes be used in lieu of more expensive, heavier equipment following a later snowfall. And there's 2 trucks that we assign regularly and 2 others that are used whenever we need to. And then we have anywhere between 2 and 8 dump trucks that we use for snow hauling. The city owns 2 of them. On a real light event, we'll come downtown, we'll push the snow off of Main Street around the corners, off a block, off of Main, and pick it up with loaders and just get rid of it that way. On a great big heavy event, we'll bring in 8 trucks. That snow blower that we have takes about 25 to 35 seconds to fill a dump truck. So in a heavier snow event, we can keep 8 dump trucks running, and the snow blower still waiting. So, but that's worked real well. The primary snow storage site is at the National Guard Armory. That is also a public snow dump. And then the city's site at the Bass Pond near Sorensen's. We also use skid steer loaders and the like, and we have 2 that are in the downtown area to clean the sidewalks, a 3rd one on the school properties, a 4th one at the cemetery, and the 5th one helps out when we're cleaning up downtown. We use also 2 tractors in the downtown area for parking lots and alleys, another tractor at the airport, and a fourth airport, the next tractor out at the schools, and then we have a couple of smaller tractors that are used as needed. For the municipal parking lots, there is no parking in municipal parking lots between 2 a.m. and 6 a.m., except for those lots that have designated overnight parking stalls identified by the signs that you see up on the top right there. There are permits available for those overnight lots, and we recommend that people get them from the police department. Mainly that provides contact information for the police department for the owner of that vehicle, and that can help. They may be able to just get a hold of you and have them move the vehicle instead of having the vehicle towed. So we do recommend that people do that. Whenever it's possible, we're going to clean up the overnight stalls as we're going. And oftentimes we can go some period of time without needing to kick everybody out of there and clean it up that way. But typically, once or twice a winter, we're going to have to come in and clean those lots out. And when we do that, we put those signs that you see on the bottom right over the top of those overnight signs. And then we'll post them in the morning. That allows people to park elsewhere in the lot for that 2 to 6 period of time. And then we'll come in and clean it up and remove the signs when we're done cleaning up, and then regular parking restrictions go into place. We will put those signs out before 10 o'clock in the morning if we're going to clean those up. So that's kind of how the parking lot system works. So if people have questions, I'd be happy to help them with that. But the main thing is just keep an eye on those overnight parking signs, because there's going to be a big honking red one hanging on the top of it when it's time to move your car. So Sidewalks and trails is another question that comes up oftentimes. In general, our policy is that the adjacent property owner is responsible for a 4-foot width. We do have sidewalks and trails that are on the city's route maps, and they are in a 4-tiered priority system. The issue is sometimes a new snowfall will reset the priority level. So it's possible that if you have snow 2-3 days in a row, you know, that we won't get down to those lower priority ones for several days. The other thing is private sidewalks are inspected following snow events, and properties that are in violation are notified. And if the sidewalk isn't cleaned up in a timely manner, then the city can do that and bill the property owners for that. So, snow dumps, we do have a public site north of the Armory at 1200 Adams Street that is available to whomever wants to. We do not provide services to that except for the things that we put in there. The snow that we put in there we'll manage. So it takes a little cooperation from people to make sure that we're maintaining the piles and getting the maximum use of that site. Any other sites are not for private use. If we do fill up the Armory site, which has happened more than once, we will designate another public snow dump site, and then we'll post directions to that new site at the Armory so that everybody knows where the new one is. So we hope that we don't get that much snow, right, Dave? All right, cool. A reminder that it's a violation of state statutes and local ordinances for private parties to move snow from a private property onto or across a public roadway. And the violators are subject to the consequences of those statutes and ordinances. If we see it, we will first warn, and then if we need to, we can do some cleanup and charge if we have to, those kinds of things. So best thing is keep it on your side of the fence. Private snow removal contractors, their activities are considered licensed. And several years ago, the decision was made to consider them licensed, not to actually have them apply for licenses. So violations of statutes and ordinances could result in suspension of their privilege to provide this service in the city, and any other penalties that may go along with that. Damage to private property, even with the best care, snow removal can cause damage. And the city will consider responsibility for damage caused by a physical contact with the plow. The most common, obviously, is a mailbox. And we have 3 standard choices of mailbox that the property owner can choose from. If they don't want any one of those, we'll do a maximum reimbursement for them replacing their mailbox of $285. Anytime that we do have that happen, we try to get out there and make sure that we see what happened, understand what happened, try to connect with the property owner. Some of the bigger events we may have the police help us with that. So, services on private property are not provided except when we're responding to emergency services call. It could be a police, could be fire, could be ambulance, utility leak, any kind of thing like that. We will help with those emergency calls. The other time when we could provide some service on a private property is if there's a direct benefit to other city operations, and we also have the property owner's consent to go across their property to do that operation. Last but not least, place to call for service, complaints, or concerns.
And praise too, right?
Praise, yeah, we'll take it all. So in the winter, our hours are from 7 a.m. to 3:30 p.m. And 4219 is the regular business hours numbers. There is a contact number for emergency service after hours at the Public Works emergency line at 4272. So, very good. Call us during the day. Oh, that made noise. I didn't want that. So check out our website too. It's on there. And just if there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
So are the plows ready to go?
Yeah, after last year's.
No, it's not gonna snow. Say no, John.
After last year's scramble on October 19th, 20th, yes, they're on. We didn't want to do that again.
So are you gonna have, do you have any issues with supplies, sand, salt, anything?
I haven't heard anything that we're anticipating. Most of the salt that comes into Minnesota comes on barges up the Mississippi River, and typically they have it pretty well stockpiled by the time fall comes. And I haven't heard any issues with supply on that end. The one thing that could be the one thing that we're concerned most about are any kind of parts for vehicles and equipment, because we have bumped into certain parts for vehicles that take quite a bit longer than they used to get here. Simple things like lights and switches and different things like that. So we're aware of that. I think we are pretty likely going to have to dip into our our spare truck if we need to. If we have any issues, we're anticipating that's going to happen. We also anticipate we may need to kind of reconfigure routes and equipment based on what is functional, if there is any issue in getting parts and repairs made in a timely manner. So that's probably our biggest concern this year.
Thank you.
Anything else for John?
All right, thank you guys.
Do you have a resolution to approve?
Well, we have a resolution underneath there, 15372.
I'll make a motion to approve 15372.
Second.
Motion by Mary, second by Chad to approve the resolution. Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, carried. It's after 6, so let's jump up to the public hearing. The 2022 Pavement Management Program, letting number 1, project number 22-01. We have a couple resolutions underneath there. Resolution number 15369, resolution ordering improvement and preparation of plans and specifications. And resolution number 15370, resolution approving plans and specifications and ordering advertisements for bids.
All right. Good evening, Mayor and Council. Yes, this is the public hearing, like Mayor Forcier mentioned, associated with our pavement management program for 2022, and this is playing off a sequence of projects that we've been talking about for many years now, as we developed the recreational center pond, Linden Park pond that was built. It's not shown here, obviously, but up where the smaller ball fields were 3 years ago, and since then we've taken on the roadways to the east of the rec center, shown in the red and green. What's the difference between the red and green coloring? Last year we had rehabilitation projects or roadways, and then we had partial reconstruction roadways, which are shown in the red. So there were two different construction approaches applied last year that arrived at varying assessment rates. This year, we're addressing the roadways shown in purple. I should make note that the roadways shown in blue were thin overlays that were administered in 2020. So we deemed those streets to still be in a condition where we could put a maintenance overlay on them, basically a Band-Aid, and buy some time prior to those roadways ultimately being addressed with a rehab or reconstruction project at some point in the future. So what we're discussing this evening are the segments of roadways shown in the purple coloring. So basically you have Sunset from South Grade Road on the south end up to Linden Avenue on the north end. You have a short segment of Laura Avenue, basically about 150 feet to the west of Sunset to extend our storm sewer system to that length to a low point there on Laura. And then down to Neal, as shown here, we're going from Linden to the west to Key Street. All of these segments, for the most part, have storm sewer main improvements and catch basins and the likes that are all associated with providing drainage conveyance to the new pond. And then lastly, Key Street would be one of the exceptions. Basically, Key Street we deem to be at a condition, not only the pavement, but the concrete curbing that it necessitated a rehab project or reconstruction project, excuse me, at this point. So I don't know if council has any questions with respect to the scope of the project. Obviously from staff standpoint, yeah, we're glad to see this the sequence of project coming to a close next year. We've already noticed the benefits of the local drainage improvements of the ponding system, to the east of the rec center, and namely the Merrill and South Grade Road intersection and the stormwater conveyance, collection and conveyance that's now occurring there. So pond seems to be functioning well, holds water, so due to the nature of the native soils there. So that's a good thing. That provides standing water, dead storage treatment, they call it. So other than that, I guess I should mention what's in the capital improvement plan. Really to close out this area will be the improvements of Dale Street to the north of South Grade Road up to Roberts, and then that last segment of Roberts from Allen, I believe, to the to Dale. So hopefully we can pick up that length of Dale and that remaining section of East Roberts in 2023. And that'll really close out our work down in this area for the time being, and we can move on to other areas of town. With that, we'll touch on a few things that are included within your packet. First and foremost, as usual, well, I guess back to usual to some degree, we did administer an in-person project meeting. So we invite everybody that's basically adjacent to the roadway work. We do understand that there's obviously the cul-de-sacs there and then the loop street to the north of Linden. Those people, like shown on the map, they're not being, impacted by the construction itself, but they're obviously going to be impacted from an access standpoint throughout the construction. So we didn't invite those people to this meeting at this point in time. We want to finalize our staging plan, probably get the work under contract so we understand the contractor's schedule. If he's going to do things or propose to do things a little differently than our staging plan, exactly what his start date will be. And then we envision having a pre-construction meeting of sort with the whole area as a whole out there. Not only the streets being impacted by the actual construction, but the other cul-de-sac roadways and then the streets to the north of Linden that'll be impacted also from an access standpoint. So with that being said, nothing new here. We try to do our best to describe the proposed improvements. We get into the costs and funding. We talk quite a bit about assessments. And then we basically state, what type of roadway work is being done. It is a partial street reconstruction this year, all of the streets. So per the city's fee schedule, the $65 a front foot rate will apply. On a typical lot, which is the old 66 by 132 standard lot and block, city lot back in the day. So you would take 66 feet times the $65, and arrive at approximately $4,300. Obviously, there's a variety of lot widths out in this area of town, so that's by no means a typical or the majority of lots. And then we have a couple of disclaimer there. Obviously, methods and assessment amounts are subject to change. And then we talk about the term that more than likely will be applied, and we haven't varied from this for many, many years. 10-year term, and an approximate interest rate of 3 to 5%, probably closer to 3, knowing what interest rates have been in the recent past. And then lastly, we spell out kind of back to assessments, the hearing process, that's tied to special assessments per state statute. So we want to be very, upfront with people what that process entails. They want to object or state an objection letter. They have the right to do that per state statute, and we provide all the detail there. So we're very forthcoming. So basically tonight we're administering the public hearing, the second paragraph there, and then looking into the future there'll be another hearing after the city opens bids and we actually know the actual construction costs associated with the project. We envision that being, like I stated here, February or March 2022. We're actually, you might have noticed on one of the resolutions, we're looking at a bid opening date of December 15th. And that's a good thing. We want to keep pushing this along because, like we learned last year, and when we can get ahead of the curve and get things out for bids earlier in the season, we hopefully get more bidders that result in a better bid price. And, that was the case last year on the roadways to the east of the rec center. So we're going to keep pushing. If we can deliver that bid opening date in mid-December, we might bring this back to council the last council meeting in January to award the project. So we'll be well ahead of the curve, and hopefully that puts us in a position to get a good number, because like everything else we've been talking about this evening, prices are more than likely going up, especially on this front when you're seeing the fuel prices and oil prices where they're at and what they're forecasting right now. So it'll be interesting how construction prices play out this year. With that, schedule construction items, namely the schedule, we envision this being completed in 1 year, obviously next spring, summer of 2022, and then we always have our contact information. Staff is more than happy to meet people on site, work through any specific items or concerns. And I think the other thing I wanted to show that wasn't necessarily in your packet, this is what goes out to the property owners. This is the formal notice of hearing. So this just gives council an idea what not only the items that the assessment and the project area map and then that notice document we just worked through, but this is the actual formal legal document that notifies the property owner of the proposed assessment and the hearing occurring this evening. And what we switched to many years ago, going to our assessment rate approach, which we set for the city's fee schedule, we're able to then provide an estimated assessment amount for this given property. Their street frontage was just over 98 lineal feet, so 98.15 times $65 a front foot arrives at that almost $6,400. That gives us the ability to be very confident with property owners with respect to what their assessment amount's going to be. We're not waiting to see the actual bid prices and then, apply or derive a formula to arrive at their assessment amount. Some cities do that and administer assessments in that way. That results in variations year to year that actually can be, I guess, a little bit of a target when the city is trying to justify benefit to the property owner and having that variability year to year based on the actual bid prices. So this method has proved to be successful. We haven't had an appeal. Well, we haven't even had somebody write us in many, many years. Nonetheless, go to court to fight an appeal. So with that being said, we may look at assessment rates going into 2023 to hopefully generate a little more revenue on the assessment front to offset the actual construction costs. So these may be going up, but just wanted to show this to council. This is what the property owners see, and with that, yeah, council has any questions, thoughts?
Mayor and Council, once again, tonight is the public hearing portion. This is the opportunity that we provide to the public to give comment to the city council on the proposed project. And as Kent noted, there'll be a future hearing on the proposed costs of it. Once again, it's up to the council to determine whether or not a project moves forward, and that's, I guess, the purpose of this public hearing tonight. So if you didn't have any additional questions for Kent at this moment, I'd ask the mayor to open up the public hearing for public comment.
We'll open it up for public comment.
If you have interest in providing comment to the council, please come forward to the kiosk up front here, state your name and address for the record.
I'll make a motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
Motion by Chad, second by Mary to close the public hearing. Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
I was waiting for John to get up and object to the project.
Completely forgot he's got his own property on that assessment.
No, unknowing to him, I knew he was gonna sit there, so he has glue on his chair.
And I should have made mention, we didn't have that many people. I think we only had 3 properties represented at our neighborhood project meeting. It's been no secret to these property owners. We've been talking about this sequence of projects for a long time and have had surveys and, project info sheets go out. So yeah, not surprisingly.
So John, you talked about the width or the length of the property. What's the norm for a property? Like I live on an old street, so I don't have 90 or 94.
Yeah, it varies.
Are newer additions
66 is the old typical lot. Like I said, we don't see we'll get into some neighborhoods that have this standard typical, lot and block, 66-foot width.
Mm-hmm.
I would say on average, you're probably on average is 80-foot width. There are some lots out there that are slightly less than 66 that maybe aren't even compliant, but were platted at some point in time for whatever reasons. But yeah, it varies. We've dealt with lots that are, 300 feet plus in some neighborhoods. So yeah, it's the assessment basis on a front footage that's been utilized by the city. Yeah, for a long time. I've looked at some old assessment rolls, doing some research on stuff, and this front footage basis has been utilized for a long time. Whether it's perfectly fair or not, I guess could be debated, but we are consistent with it, and we administer it very, very consistently. We do not deviate because, yeah, we don't want to compromise that.
So what do you do for, if you're the corner lot?
You get a corner credit to 132 feet, which is back to that typical 66-foot width, 132-foot depth. So let's say you have a lot that's 100 by 200, you're on the corner. Per that policy and trying to administer that corner credit consistently, we apply the corner credit to the long side. So if your short side, the 100-foot side, is being reconstructed this year, we're not going to allow you to bring that credit to, your short side and then sell your house and then somebody gets hit with the long side with no credit being applied to it, at some point in the future. But let's say you're on one of these corners. In this scenario, in both sides, let's say you were, John's house per se, you're on Sunset and Neil, on a 100-foot by 200-foot piece of property, you would pay the 100 feet on the short side, and then you would pay 68 feet on the long side, 200 minus 132. Yeah.
Mary, and I would also add, lot sizes, you can see how the planning world has changed over years based off of when your development was. You're the older part of town had a lot smaller lots. You get to the 70s and 80s and everybody wanted a big lot, and you can see where some of those developments are. And now with costs being so high to construct, we're seeing that pushback to try to go to smaller lots, which is interesting because then we do hear some people complain about, well, why are you treating these people different than others? And we're not necessarily treating them. It just depends on how the developer wants to develop their lot and collect their fees for that. Now we have minimum lot size requirements that can change from time to time, but I think it's interesting when you go through a community, you can see the phases of, what centuries they were built based off of what people wanted for the type of lot and sizes. So that's where it's tough to say a typical lot is this big, because depending on when it was built, it could be completely different than what it is today.
Oh, thank you. I just think it's good information for everybody to know that.
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, definitely. It can be a bit confusing, but like I said, it's from the city standpoint and staff standpoint, we have to be the bearer of bad news to some people with these larger lots. And, but, if somebody wanted to come to you and dispute it, I always tell them they're more than welcome to do that. But, our assessment policy and the front footage that's being arrived at. But from staff standpoint, we're not going to deviate. But yeah, like you said, we do our best to educate people. We do an assessment worksheet, that is double and triple checked, and we look up all the plat information and everything. So we're doing all our homework when we arrive at these front footages and apply the assessment rates.
Anything else for John? Or Kent, I'm sorry. All right, we have two resolutions underneath there. Resolution number 15369 and resolution number 15370.
I'd make a motion to approve both of them.
Second.
Motion by Chad, second by Pat to approve both resolutions. Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Number 10.
Down to new business, application for federal safety funds for County State Highway 115 and Jefferson Street Southeast intersection.
Yes, here's an application for federal safety fundings. It's included in your packet. This is in conjunction with the CSA 115. Airport Road, if you want to call it that, and then Jefferson Street to the north, and County Road 25 to the south intersection. We've spoken a bit about this project as the McLeod County's project development has played out. I'll get into this some more. We'll take details about the layout or the design processes. But what we're asking for this evening is council's blessing of this application for federal safety funds, which is administered through MnDOT's Highway Safety Improvement Program, their HSIP program they call it. So the federal highway sends dollars to the state, and then the state spreads it across the differing MnDOT districts across the state. What we're proposing, and there is a cap for each public agency when you apply for these funds. So we're proposing that between us and the county, we apply for $1 million, which would be $500,000 each from requests from the county and the city respectively, based on the current cost estimate of just over $2.1 million. That would arrive at a local match of just over $1.1 million. There will be a cost sharing agreement put together between the county and the state at some point in time. Obviously, if the county and us, the city, are able to capture these dollars, that'll offset the cost of this project significantly, almost to the tune of 50% at this point in time. The other thing that should be noted is the local match share would be more on the county's side of the equation. If we're fortunate enough to get $500,000, that's going to largely offset the cost of our one leg of that intersection. So, yeah, it's not a given by any means in it. When the final numbers are in, it by no means should be a 50-50 basis, applied to the total overall cost. That makes sense. I envision it being more of a 25-75% basis, and if we're fortunate enough to get this grant, that $500,000 is going to largely, the city's $500,000 is going to largely offset our share of the project. So with that, yeah, I don't know if there's any questions. I won't get into the grant application. It's a lot of engineering analysis. I think it was well put together. There was a full ICE report, intersection control evaluation, that was administered to arrive at this design decision, the roundabout intersection decision. So it's been well studied. There's a crash history there. I think that's pretty well known, unfortunately, and that really deems this type of intersection treatment to be appropriate. And ultimately, if this intersection is implemented, that will impact speed limits to some degree after it's constructed. So, that'll be a decision that the county will have to make, probably in conjunction with the state and some of their guidance. But I believe if this intersection, a roundabout, is built, it's gonna slow down that whole corridor.
Okay, do you have pictures of what the layouts at least being proposed for the public at all?
Yep, I'll get into that. I don't know if there's any questions with respect to the grant application. All right. So yeah, there's the layout that was included within your packet. It's a little dated at this point, back from end of August 27th, but we're still working through some design features between county and the city and Stonebrook Engineering, the consultant on the project. So I'll start with the northerly leg, and there's a match point here. Now, if you can see where the cursor, this is Toronto Street, which is Toronto Road, actually, excuse me. And that's basically the end of city limits, the Southwinds development here, the southerly end of it on the westerly side of the road. And that's its match point called. Currently, this roadway from this point to the south down to the intersection. The last 800 feet, give or take, of Jefferson is under county jurisdiction at this point in time. The intent after this project is to do a turnback agreement that would turn back this length of roadway, Jefferson Street, to the city. And I think we would be willing to do that. The counties wanted to see that achieved, seen that achieved for many years now, just due to connectivity and continuity of the state aid systems. From the city standpoint, we've always wanted to see this improved in some manner before we take it back or it's turned back to us. So that time is coming. That doesn't mean these residents by no means are going to be city residents at this point. It's just
they want to be.
yeah, right, which, I'm sure they will want to sign up. No, so yeah, we don't envision, you know, this larger farmstead over here on the west side, or these 6, 7 residential properties coming into the city at any point in the near future. This property, the Harmony River Presbyterian Home property, I guess the parcel that's beyond what Harmony River currently sits on, that is annexed into the city. So that's already annexed. And so there's a little bit of jogging of the municipal limits going on in this area. With that, we are going to clean up. If you go over here to the inset, I can zoom in here a little bit. Yeah, we are going to clean up a little bit of a disconnect in the concrete curbing and I guess just to make a consistent width of the roadway all the way from the intersection down at Casal 115 and the south end of Jefferson all the way up to Edmonton. So that will be rehab. So basically we'll do a reclaim project starting up here. You know, this is all brand new road section here, but we're going to be adding curb along the easterly side. And then we're going to look at installing a trail, a 10-foot trail directly behind the curb on the west side. And then that'll back to these properties within Southwinds. We'll get to Toronto, like I mentioned. There'll be a trail crossing there. And then once you get to this area, you know, now we're picking up new curbing on the west side also. The current curb section ends at the south edge of the Southwinds development. So this will be new curb and gutter. The trail will then at some point here start to pull away from the back of curb, just to basically give a little bit of a boulevard to put signage in. As you approach the roundabout, you know, you have the roundabout ahead signs, speed limit advisory signs and such. So need to pull that trail away from the curb just to provide a boulevard there for signage. And then as you approach the intersection, obviously the painted median starts to be incorporated, and then you get into the actual raised concrete median there at the intersection. This roadway will be 28 feet wide, face of curb to face of curb. We had to do that to allow us enough room to incorporate the trail section on the west side and not have significant impacts to neighboring properties. There will be an encroachment on this property that we'll have to look to acquire some easement rights. We did not want to encroach to the north of the homes here. Just there's a little bit of a history there with that property owner, so we wanted to stay away from that property. So basically the encroachment had to be pushed to the west side. We wanted to maintain the separation from these homes and maintain that easterly roadway edge line going into the intersection. So that really plays out to where the trail needed to be. There will be some tree impacts on the very northerly end behind those south wind city properties. There's some boulevard trees there. They're on city right away, so they're, I guess, our trees per se, but they will be impacted, so we might hear about that, but we're not necessarily taking private property trees. And with that, you get into the intersection, and yeah, this will be a drastic improvement in comparison to an intersection that has no turn lanes at this point in time, whether it be on CASA 115 or Jefferson 25, whatever you want to call it. There isn't a turn lane or a bypass lane to be had out there, so there has never been any intersection improvements, administered at this intersection, since it was basically incorporated. Maybe that raised bituminous median was put on the north leg just to provide some channeling to, help offset the skew of that intersection to hopefully encourage people to channelize and give them a better sight line. But that's really the only thing that's ever been done. This will all be concrete. Concrete roadway, concrete medians. There'll be a pond that needs to be incorporated to meet the stormwater requirements up here on the northwesterly quadrant. Other than that, we will terminate the trail here and put a flare. That's where the purple comes in to the west leg. That'll bring people back onto the roadway. We're hoping as project staff and between us and the county and the consultant, there's going to have to be a conversation with Press Homes there with respect to incorporating that pond. So maybe we can talk trail and extend the trail on their property to the west, tie into the trail that already exists on their property to the east of Sherwood. So there might be an opportunity to accomplish that trail loop sooner than later. It'd be better if it's up on their property just due to the lay of the land and the ditch grades there. It'd be tough to put it on the back slope of that ditch in that area. So we really need to get up on the Press, just the southerly edge of Press Homes property.
So can't the roundabout there, would that be surmountable, or is that gonna be similar to?
Yeah, it'll be the same size as Menards, 115 and Trunk Highway 15 from an outside circumference. And yeah, we spoke a little bit about our resource allocation. Yeah, this will all be surmountable, these medians and outer curb lines. This is playing out of a design discussion that played out over in Glencoe between people, the county, and people involved on the Morningside roundabout. So yeah, I won't share my engineering judgment on that decision, but that's the county board and people representing them are making that decision. But from my standpoint, I mean, this roundabout's going to be extremely large. I mean, and like I said, it mirrors the dimensions, the geometrics of the Trunk Highway 15 roundabout. So to have it surmountable to boot, I guess, also, yeah, it's over designed from a sizing standpoint. And yeah, I mean, it's ultimately it's a county led project, and they're going to have to deal with the ramifications of that when it comes to property acquisitions. If you look down here, the south leg, to get rid of that skew, you have to deviate quite a bit here to the west. So obviously that's going to take a fair amount of property acquisition and such. And yeah. So yeah, all good. Like I said, it'll be a drastic improvement. Glad to see the county arrived at this intersection approach. We won't debate, some of the design decisions too much, but it's a good thing. And yeah, hopefully maybe someday it'll continue to the east side of the bridge in some fashion. There's another intersection there that's not the friendliest also. Council has any questions, thoughts?
Well, that intersection needed cleaning up,
Yeah.
definitely.
No, it's well overdue, like I said. I mean, it was just a bit baffling that here nor there, not pointing fingers, but nothing had been done over the years. Yeah, so.
All right, anything else for Ken? Otherwise, entertain a motion to approve the application.
I'll make a motion to approve the application.
Second.
Motion by Mary, second by Dave to approve the application. Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, carried. Thanks, Ken.
Thank you.
Governance, we have the Public Arts Commission minutes from September 8th, 2021. We have the EDA board minutes from September 22nd, 2021. We have the library board minutes from September 27th, 2021. Chief Jefferson, do you have anything for us tonight? Mr. Olson, you have anything else?
Where'd that glue go?
Just a reminder that, leaf season is coming, to a close, so we just encourage folks to double check the days that will be in front of your house, and we've got a couple more weeks left of it, and it's gonna go fast, so.
The ending date, John?
The last day will be the Monday of the week of Thanksgiving, so I believe that is the 22nd, if I'm not
It
mistaken.
snows, right?
Huh?
Unless it snows.
Well, yeah, well, Dave and I talked about that, it's not gonna snow till Valentine's, I think
Yeah,
he said, yeah,
absolutely.
Valentine's Day, so.
I'm gonna
We'll be
hold you
good.
to that.
All right, thank you.
Hey, thanks, John.
Good.
Kent?
Just one thing, our hawk crossing system, I think we're within days, not that it really matters at this point, it's really being utilized, but, no, they did the striping the other day, unfortunately, they didn't remove the old striping, so, or, yeah, anyways, must be a different crew or whatever. So we can get somebody out there to get rid of the old striping, we should be able to flip it on here soon. That's it.
All right. Mark?
Yeah, I think just one thing, Thursday is Veterans Day, and just wanted to say thank you so much to all the veterans and their families and their sacrifice and all they've given us. That's it.
Nicely put. Pat, start with you tonight.
Be short and sweet.
Okay. Chad?
Yeah, just congrats to Isabel Schmitz for winning the cross country meet the other day.
Oh, yes, yes.
She absolutely dominated it. And then good luck to the football team this week. So big week for sports.
Thank
That's
you.
all I got.
All right. Mary?
I don't have anything except to thank every veteran that is within our city and that can hear our broadcast and see us. I mean, you keep us all free. Thank you. If you see a veteran out there, buy him a cup of coffee, buy him breakfast. It's the right thing to do.
Thanks, Mary.
That's it.
Dave?
Everybody stole my thunder, so I don't have anything that would be pertinent, but yeah, veterans definitely are number one. The presentation that Matt gave last Thursday night was fantastic, and so thank you.
Yeah, it's always nice to, Matt surely covers everything that's going on in the city, and I do enjoy it, so it's kinda.
Plus, he had a few good jokes too.
Jokes, yeah.
A few good ones, a few bad ones.
Isn't that what dead jokes are? So I told my daughters and they didn't think they were funny at all, so.
I thought you did a good job. The video tie-in was pretty good.
Matt, by now you should know that dad jokes to kids aren't really funny.
What?
Yeah.
Don't be hurting my feelings like that, so.
He had one left and she had to go after it, right? All right, Matt, what do you have tonight?
Obviously with Veterans Day and Thursday, city offices are closed, so just a reminder of that. We'll be obviously back and open on Friday. So that's it.
Alrighty, and, everybody, as Dave said, everybody stole this thunder, so actually, let's go home and see our families.
Adjourn.
So, a second.
Motion by Pat, second by Dave to adjourn, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, carried.